Hello everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of November. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the state's revenue picture and how that might impact funding for our public schools both this year and in the future. Former State Budget Director and current Governmental Relations Consultant Jim Moody has conducted an analysis of state revenue, and he says a diminishing revenue base combined with sluggish or non-existent revenue growth will likely mean less money available to fund public education and other needs in coming years. Moody told an audience at the recent MSBA annual conference one example of the diminishing revenue base is a provision in Senate Bill 19 passed in 2015 that effectively wiped out a large portion of Missouri's corporate income tax, thereby reducing state revenue by around $200 million.
And so I think revenue growth is going to be very limited or possibly non-existent in the next 10 or more years. And so, I would go back to what I told you about starting to work on this with the School Boards Association in 1994. What happened in the 90s triggered a series of what I believe are serious tax mistakes, which have continued all the way through Senate Bill 19 in 2015. And we're just in a heck of a mess. We're 70% individual income. That's probably going to go up to 73, 74, 75%. We're going to be cutting our largest revenue source. Sales tax is growing very little, and the future just doesn't look good.
Moody also said state revenue will be affected by tax cuts likely to take effect later this fiscal year as a result of Senate Bill 509. He warned those attending his session at the annual conference there almost certainly will be some significant withholdings from the state budget during the current fiscal year. He estimated the withholdings at between $250 and $300 million, and some of that may come from state funding for public schools. Students throughout Missouri have more opportunities than ever to participate in career and technical education because of partnerships that have been developed between career and technical centers and higher education institutions around the state. There continues to be high demand for skilled workers in areas such as welding, mechanics, HVAC, and transportation. But business and industry leaders say they often struggle to fill those jobs. State Board of Education member Joe Driscoll says even more needs to be done to connect classroom academics with real-world skills.
We have employers that can't find enough skilled and educated kids and people to take the really good jobs that exist out there. And on the other hand, we have communities and neighborhoods all around this state and other places in the country where the only jobs that kids and others can find are low-wage service jobs. So we have this really big gap between, kind of a uplifting educational experience that allows kids to kind of get and keep good family and community supporting jobs, and then on the other end, the availability of jobs in a lot of places around the state, it just doesn't quite match up.
Driscoll made his comments during a panel discussion with members of the State Board of Education during the recent MSBA annual conference. MSBA's Center for Education Safety held its 10th annual Safe Schools and Colleges Conference at the Lake of the Ozarks just prior to the annual conference. The event drew school resource officers, board members, administrators, law enforcement officials, and community leaders who have a role in keeping our schools as safe as possible. Author and retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman was a keynote speaker at the event, and he said there are a number of low-cost steps schools can take to keep school buildings safe, including random visits by local law enforcement officers. Grossman also said installing an anonymous tip line can be helpful.
We need to have something they can text message tips in. We need to be able to call in. A baseline requirement is a tip line. We're stopping incidents daily across America with tip lines. It needs to be well advertised. They need to know where it is. They need to be able to call it in. They need to be able to text it in. And they need to be anonymous if they want to.
Neighborhood Watch crime prevention programs have been around for many years, but now MSBA's Center for Education Safety has developed a school-focused Neighborhood Watch program called Schools Watch. This program encourages parents, grandparents, and those living near school buildings to become another set of eyes watching for suspicious activity near schools. A free mobile app is available to allow neighbors to report such activity immediately to law enforcement officials. Contact MSBA's Center for Education Safety for details on how you can form a Schools Watch program in your school district. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.